afternoon.
Good afternoon. And I can imagine you must be busy in the family things because of the long weekend, actually.
Well, I've just come off the netball court, actually. It was a nail biter with my daughter. She won by 2 points, so it's been a good morning.
Excellent. Very well done. In the
Sorry.
meantime, yeah, no worries.
Issues. Hold on.
No problem. So let me
I've
know
got
when you're
I've got
ready.
a new computer. I'm still getting used to it. So there we
Yep.
go. All done.
Not a problem. In the meantime, Erica, I mean, it's already been in the air, and I think it's always good to start with the first thing first. In a recent parliamentary session, I guess on 6th of May, you mentioned receiving numerous unsolicited emails from individuals in India seeking immigration advice, which is not your job, obviously, likening them to spam. Could you elaborate on the context of this statement and clarify your intent?
Of course. Look, you'll all know the rough and tumble of the House, especially in question time. It's pretty nerve-wracking. And the context was I was being asked about the personal use of my Gmails. You may remember that big furore about the fact that I needed to
Yes.
use my Gmails for printing and the like. And I was being asked about whether or not I made them available for the Official Information Act. And I answered, of course, well, I do. Everything that is in my personal email, I make available for the OIA. But I needed to make the point quite clearly that there are a number of other work style emails that I do not and should not be and are not official information. And I was making the point that I get emails from all around the world that are unsolicited, and usually they're asking me for a job or a visa, which I'm not allowed legally to give advice on. And I was making the point that I don't count those as official information. I don't forward them through. I don't respond to them, and neither should I. Look, I shouldn't have mentioned one particular country, but it was just that I had recently received one that I happened to remember that had come through that I not read and not replied to. And I mentioned a particular country. The fact is, I get them from all over the world. And of course, if I could go back and not mention the one particular country, I would have. Because the problem now is, of course, it's been taken wildly out of context, misreported, and caused a huge amount of upset to the communities, and the fact is that most of what's being reported is, in fact, not what I said.
Understand. Do you regret it all?
Oh, look, I regret the fact that my comments have been taken so wildly out of context and misrepresented, and that it's caused so much upset. I've explained what I was asked and what I was answering. And I think that the really disappointing thing is the fact that certain people have used this for political advantage. And I remember when I was in opposition, I worked really hard for the migrant communities. I developed policies. We got the migrant nurses reunited with their children. We fought for RV21. We made sure that we fought for split migrant families. We came up with the family boost. That's what you do in opposition. But there are certain actors in the opposition at the moment who are not doing that. They're taking words wildly out of context, causing huge upset to the community. And I think, that is totally regrettable. And the fact that people are upset by those comments, of course, is upsetting.
Wonderful. In the meantime, do you consider this fact that we are actually long-term partnership with India, looking at the trade, looking at the migration, and especially now when our foreign minister actually negotiating with the ministers in India?
Yes, so I know he's there at the moment, and I've been in touch, or my office has been in touch with some of his officials to see how it's been going, and it's going very well. I think that the key is that, of course, we have an excellent relationship. We are very keen for a free trade deal. And I hope that your listeners will remember actions over misrepresented words. I hope that they remember all of the hard work that we did in opposition for the community and the hard work we've done now. The very first thing I did as immigration minister was about migrant exploitation. And your listeners will all remember the stories of 40 Indian men crammed into a 3-bedroom house being horribly exploited. Now, that was the very first thing on my ministerial agenda that I did when I became the minister, was to stamp that out. All of the actions we took first were for that. We, of course, still have migrant exploitation. We all know that, but certainly nothing like it was. We took immediate steps to protect people. And now we're working on the family boost. I'm excited. We'll be announcing that very soon.
I was going to ask you the same question. Could you provide an update on parent visa policy?
Well, we're very close. It's been, we started working on it in January. It's taken a little bit of time because it's quite detailed policy work and there's a number of things to work through, but we will have something to say in the next couple of weeks.
Excellent.
And I know how
That's good
important
news.
family reunification is.
In the meantime, this guy, Kamaldeep Singh, he met you actually when you came into the studio a few years back. Kamaldeep, he's asking that English language testing requirement for the bus drivers in New Zealand and also for the truck drivers. There are a few petitions also, in the pipeline. So what is your take on this?
Look, one of the things that when we put this, or that was a previous government actually put this policy in place, it was very clear from the start that this was what the English language requirements were. In saying that, I accept and appreciate that it's been really tough for them to meet. We are looking at pathways to residency right now. We're going to have more to say about the skilled migrant category again in the near future. We're nearing the end of that piece of work as well. And we are considering the English language test, because I know in other countries, if you look at Australia, for example, they have different levels of English for different levels of skill. And so that's something that we are considering, and it is particularly because of that case from the bus drivers. So it is something that's on the work program I'm thinking about.
Okay. In the meantime, this gentleman from Christchurch, is there an opportunity to increase the quota of the parent resident category?
Look, it's to be perfectly honest, it's not something that we've been focusing on at the moment. I've been focusing on the parent visitor visa, the long-term 5-year multiple entry visa, because I think that's something that the community have been calling really loudly for. As much as I'd love to get everything done, and you know me, I'm very ambitious and impatient, and I like to get lots of things done. The fact is I've got limited resources in terms of the policy people and then the actual ability to implement that through the IT system. Honestly, everything at immigration takes months to implement. So it'll be on the work program for the future, but right now my sole focus has been getting this Parent Boost visa up and running. Excellent.
Let's talk about your favorite portfolio, which is education, right from the beginning.
I don't have favorites.
Second favorite, I would say. My name is Baljeet from AKA Education Group. We are one of the major healthcare education providers in New Zealand. Many of our international students in disability and mental health are not eligible. I think he's talking about the pathway for residency in this country for the international students. This has been a very successful model, Erica. So what is happening with this international students coming into the country?
We are also doing a big piece of work on international students, both, and they're linked, obviously, international students and pathways to residence. The Prime Minister has got a big focus on education, but particularly international education. He wants us to double our numbers, which we should absolutely be able to do. But if we're going to do that, we have to make sure that we've got good pathways to residence for people who come here to study. And so at the same time, we're looking at student visa changes. We're also looking at pathways to residence under SMC. So all of those things are in the mix at the moment. I want people who come here to study a degree or something that is we desperately need, and they're studying in that area. I want them to have a clear pathway to residence so they can see the value in coming here if they want to be able to stay. So we're working through that at the moment.
Wonderful. In the meantime, Irene asking, what is the government doing to eliminate the number of suicides in schools for children in NZ? This is very, very sensitive question anyway.
The number of, I'm sorry, I missed you. The number of
suicides in schools for children, looking at the teenagers, looking at the overall stats of this country.
Yeah, it's a wider problem than just education. It's very cross portfolio in health, mental health, partly education, of course, partly my new portfolio of social media as well, because we know so much harm is now following children around into the privacy of their own bedroom via this very powerful tool that they have in their hand where the abuse can continue to follow them. So there's a number of things that we're doing. I know in education, we are massively powering up our learning support so young people can be resilient. But the big part of the work is the work that I'm doing with Matt Ducey in terms of mental health supports and how do we get more mental health supports to young people in need. Because I guess the one thing I hear from teachers and principals is that they say to me, we get these young people who are highly traumatized for whatever reason, and there's no one to help. We can't get them into a mental health service provider, and it all falls on the school. And as you well know, schools are not equipped to deal with some of these very difficult issues. So I'm working with Matt Ducey on some better integration with mental health in schools. And also, as you know, that I'm working on a piece of legislation around how do we protect people from the harms of online media and these digital devices that they follow them around.
Yes. So while we're talking about the digital devices, let me ask you this very simple question. What is your vision for the future of education in New Zealand, particularly in a digital and artificial intelligence-driven world?
It's an excellent question. I can honestly tell you I don't have all the answers, and neither do many ministers of education from around the world. I've been visiting conferences and meeting with them, and we're all in the same position where the technology is moving so quickly and is far advanced of government departments and quite often schools and teachers, and it's moving so quickly it's hard to keep up. However, in saying that, we've been thinking very hard about how do we use and get young people to understand that AI is a tool to help them advance their studies. And so we've been working with a number of different companies. In fact, I had a 2-hour conversation with Sir Ian Taylor the other day, who is really passionate about the use of AI, integrating it with the curriculum to provide lesson plans for teachers. So there's a whole lot of work that's going on in different areas, and we'll continue that. But I guess the question is, when do we introduce it? How do we introduce it? And how do we use it in a responsible and ethical way? And those are the questions we're answering at the moment.
In the meantime, this gentleman from Kiwiana Immigration, Pavandeep Singh, asking question. We have been dealing with a lot of offshore student visa applications, but we believe the assessment done for applications from Indian origin is different in comparison to the applicants from Sri Lanka or other Southeast Asian countries. While India is actually the quite pivotal partner of New Zealand, by all means. So is there anything like that?
We don't treat student visas different by different countries. We treat them by risk. We have a high risk, low risk, and medium risk, and we triage those accordingly. It doesn't matter which country they come from. And that we look at things like where do funds come from. And there are certain countries, in fact, India is not one of them. There's other countries where we find that it's really hard to prove source of funds. So we've got different issues in different countries. We certainly don't treat different countries any differently. It's just around the things like source of funds and the risk of the applicants themselves and whether or not they are really wanting to come here as a bona fide student to actually study in New Zealand, so that they shouldn't be seeing any difference.
Okay. What is your stance on the charter schools and school choice policies at this stage?
Look, I'm unsurprisingly a fan of school choice. When parents are looking at sending their children to school, they should have a range of options, whether that's a special character school, a Catholic school, a private school, a state integrated school, a state school, whatever it is. It might be a special needs school as well. It's one of our special schools who do amazing work. So it's important that we offer a breadth, because we want all children to experience success. And there are children who just do not experience success in the mainstream for whatever reason. And charter schools offer something different. And I've actually, in opposition, been in touch with the Indian community. I know that they have schools that operate on the weekend, and they were very interested in starting up those schools as charter schools. And there is an opportunity there for different communities, schools for students with different needs. We know that there are a number of people who are thinking about setting up schools for kids with neurodiversity. So it just offers choice for parents so that they get the very best for their children, and I'm all for that.
Okay. In the meantime, at your, looking at the budgeting of this country, your senior, I would say, Nicola actually announced budget nearly 3 weeks ago. I would say, Irene, little concerned about, Minister, you have just cut budgets for support teachers. These are pivotal support systems, and they're also addressing the mental health issues in the schools. So can you address on this issue?
Sure. Well, that's completely wrong. We haven't cut any supports for our support teachers or our teacher aides at all.
Okay.
In fact, quite the opposite is true. And I'm really proud of this. In very difficult fiscal times, we have managed to deliver the biggest learning support budget since 2002. It was a $700 million package into more teacher aid hours, building up to an extra 2 million hours of teacher aid hours by 2028, a specialist learning support coordinator role for every single primary school, which is going to be a game changer, making sure that those children who have very, very high needs get the support they need. And that was a massive injection of cash and also a change in the way that we budget. It was a huge package because we know the earlier we intervene, the better the outcomes. And we are really going to rely on those amazing support teachers who are in classrooms supporting teachers. So quite the opposite is true. And I'm very proud of that.
In the meantime, is there anything you want to update about AEW visa? Because, that too much hoo-ha in between looking at the migrant exploitation and looking at the other side of the picture by the employer point of view. So what is your take on that?
Look, I think we're in a much better position than we were when I came into office. I mean, when I became the minister, it was somewhere between 4 and 6 months to go right through the process of becoming accredited, getting your job check, and then applying and getting your migrant visa approved. And it was just far too long for businesses who needed to get people and skills in the country right now. And there was that part of it, and also the fact that we had a real problem with Immigration New Zealand not properly assessing risk and verifying documents, which led to all that migrant exploitation. So that was the context. Since then, the time today to go right from the very first step, which is getting your accreditation through to getting your visa approved for your migrant, is, the other day it was under 20 days, but at the moment it's sort of floating between sort of somewhere just under 20 and anything up to sort of 25, 30 days. It is very, very fast. I've made sure that Immigration New Zealand are on their foils. They've increased their productivity, because when the economy starts to turn and when businesses need to get the skills in that they need to grow their business, they need to be confident that we can process those visas on time. So we are, as well as we are properly assessing risk now, properly looking at documents and making sure that we're not bringing in people who are going to be, coming here to be exploited. So, as you know, we can't stamp it out completely, but it's in a much better position than it was. We've made some tweaks along the way. We've made sure that there is a certain level of skill that people need to have to, again, protect them from exploitation. A very low level of English, again, to protect them from exploitation. So we're in a really good space. But we're always open to taking, people's views on how we can improve even further.
Wonderful. In the meantime, our lovely listeners actually trying to acknowledge your work actually so far. The same minister has done fabulous work in terms of worker abuse that Labour left us with. Thanking you. In the meantime, English requirement again in the question, a lot of comments actually on that. Pavandeep again pointed out about the INZ needs to train their staff on how to assess the funding from Indian origin. We have plenty of examples where the application was declined, and then upon raising the complaints, it was approved. Really strange.
Yes, and I get some of those complaints through from LIAs and migrants themselves who are saying, look, I don't understand why this was approved. And I've sent it myself through to immigration to say, hey, look, take another look. Here's a batch of them. What's going on? And quite often, a number of them will be approved. So they're using those for training purposes. I guess to their defense, the whole world has become much higher risk. And so a lot of the applications they're getting are very, very high risk. And so they are trying to balance making sure that we're approving visas because we want people to come and study and visit, but also making sure we're properly assessing risk. And they try their very best and they're continually learning. But one thing I would say to those people who are asking about the source of funds, Immigration are doing a piece of work right now because I wasn't happy that we were approving enough visas, and it's always getting stuck on that approval of funds. All countries have a problem with it, some more than others, but they're doing a piece of work right now where they're going to be they're going to put out quite detailed information about if you want your student visa to be approved, here are the really good sources of funds that we will approve. So we're more open about what we will approve and what will be more difficult for us to approve, and also giving them some options like being able to deposit money here that will be more easily accepted. So there's a bit of work going on, because I acknowledge that it is a problem, and if we want to grow the number of student visas, we've got to solve this problem.
Minister, we are very thankful because of that Daman Kumar's case, as you are aware of that particular case. But in the meantime, there's another unique bunch has been missed out from RV21. And because some of the people, they stuck overseas, actually, when there was COVID hit our borders. Some of the people actually belong to the same category. Is there any chance we can address this particular category individually at later stage?
I've already said we're not going to reopen RV21,
Okay.
but there are. I mean, it's we don't even have. I don't think we've got the visa program up anymore. The actual infrastructure, but in saying that, there are other options. I mean, there's always options for them to come back in on a work visa or back in on a student visa. If they have got the skills and the experience and that we need in New Zealand, then I would encourage them to apply for a work visa.
Yeah. In the meantime, you are a family person, and this country, we are a very kind nation, and we believe in strong social ties. So Irene asking if we can invest 110 million a week in defense, then we can invest 100 million a year on children, on nutritious food. Children cannot learn if they are not fed well. So are we still need to spare some more budget for this purpose?
Look, I think the thing to note is that we've got many competing demands. Obviously, our defence capability is extraordinarily important in what is a rapidly changing world, especially in our region.
Yep.
There are some big challenges, and your listeners will have seen that recently with things that have been happening, and it's really important that we have a capable defence force that we can rely on. And by the way, that shows that we're pulling our weight, because if we expect other countries to come to our aid, then we have to be seen to be helping ourselves as well. And so it is one of those important areas we must invest in. It's been run down for a long period of time. But in saying that, in education, we've also got a lot of demands. And you've seen that with learning support, with curriculum changes, when we've pumped money into maths books, into upskilling our teachers, into all of those curriculum changes, introducing structured literacy. I mean, we have literally turned our education system around in 18 months to quite a different space than it was. And I know many of your listeners will care very deeply about education. And I hope that they can see that we are now heading towards a world-leading education system with a world-class curriculum, children being taught the same thing, high level of knowledge every year that builds up. But in relation to the specific question about school lunches, when a child comes to school and they are hungry, they will not learn. And when that child is in front of you, and it's happened to me in a school I've been in, when that child is in front of you and they haven't had breakfast or lunch, all you want to do is feed them. And we have an obligation to do that. And so look, my opinion is that we will need to continue to feed those children who don't have access to lunches. How we do that and how we approach it, of course, we will continue to think about. And I know that David Seymour has worked really hard on making sure that we can feed more children, at a more affordable price. Because remember, with the changes he made, we're now feeding thousands and thousands of young people at early childhood centres that weren't receiving food before. So certainly we know that there were some issues in the first term. I mean, we're now delivering 99 or almost 100% of lunches on time to schools, healthy, nutritious lunches. But there's always room for improvement, and we will continue to improve.
There are a few issues about immigration staff need more training, and also some comments by the truck drivers and bus drivers. They've been working in the Gulf for 10 years, 12 years, and they start commenting that we don't need much English to speak when we're working as a truck driver or bus driver. And also there's another one pathway for the hospitality industry, especially for the overseas trained chefs and the hospitality managers. Are we looking after them soon?
Well, that's what we'll be announcing in the next short while, our changes to skilled migrant category. I'll acknowledge that under the previous government, they made some changes, and I understand why they did it. They were trying to make it much more streamlined and simple. But in order to get residence, you have to either have a degree earn 1.5 times the median wage, which is very high, or be in a registered occupation. So all of the people you just spoke about will never have a pathway to residence. So we've been working on another pillar of people who are skilled, good people that we need in certain in sectors, and so there will be pathways to residence for them. I'll be able to announce something, once I've finished all the work and got agreement, of course, from Cabinet and the like. So that's working its way through at the moment. It's something I've been working on all year. It is, again, very technical. There's lots of decisions to make. You don't want unintended consequences, of course. So, but that will solve many of those problems that you talk about. Because look, if we've got someone in this country who is a qualified chef who's got, years of experience, of course, we would like those people to be able to have the opportunity to get residence. And so that's what you'll see coming up.
Excellent. Last but not least, there's a little naughty question about, have there been any changes or reviews in how your office handles unsolicited immigration inquiries to ensure all communities feel respected and heard?
Of course. Look, any emails that come into my work email are dealt with. They go immediately to immigration, and immigration will deal with those. So they respond to them, they investigate them, they look at them. For the most part, the emails that come directly to my Gmail, and again, I can't respond because they are literally saying, can I please have a job? Can you issue me a visa? And I mean, even immigration can't do that. All they can do is point them to the website or point them to a licensed immigration agent. So the kinds of things that come in are not, for the most part, they're not people saying, oh, I've got an immigration case and here's my application number and I'm being treated badly, or I haven't been approved, or those ones generally come into the work inbox as they should, and they get dealt with. Any of those that I see come through my personal email, and it's not very many, hardly at all, they get forwarded straight through to be dealt with. But the ones that I just can't respond to, and there are a lot of them, and I've actually been contacted by previous ministers of immigration who said, yeah, we got the same thing. And it's literally people saying, look, I would love a job in New Zealand. I would love a visa. Can you help me? And so it's from all over the world, from all different countries. And I don't think reasonable people would expect that that's the kind of thing that I can respond to or even have the time to. I mean, frankly, I don't even check my personal emails that often because I'm just so busy.
I understand. I totally understand your point of view now. In the meantime, Gurpreet asking about the dodgy employers. This is really, really very, very much talk of the town at this stage. So I don't know how we're going to handle these dodgy employers. I'm not talking about only Indians, but overall, looking at the overall canvas.
Yeah, well, it is a problem. And one of the, we've got some immigration changes to legislation coming up, which will help. But it has been, in fact, it's a coalition agreement that we crack down on employers who are exploiting migrants more often. So immigration are taking it very seriously. They have a number of investigations underway. They are taking people's accreditation away where they can, and they're also issuing fines. We've issued a number of fines. And we're trying to stop that sort of low-level behaviour before it escalates. And so there's quite a bit of work going on. Look, people who want to exploit other people will always exist, and we will go after them as hard as we possibly can. I've got some thoughts about how we might bolster this in the future as well through some future legislation. I guess the key thing is it comes down to funds for our compliance, essentially. So more people on the ground who are actually investigating, and that's, at the moment, as you know, we changed the immigration system so it's totally self-funding. So all of the fees and levies that come in, we use that to run the immigration system. And if we wanted to have more of those compliance officers, then that would mean increasing fees again. And I'm really loath to do that. I think we've increased them enough. And so we're looking at how else can we do that? And there are a number of options we're working through at the moment, so we can really have more people looking into these dodgy employers, because we really do need to keep on top of it. They cause immense harm.
Wonderful. We all acknowledge your good work, and it's been a big mess when you actually joined the office. In the meantime, before you go, Pavandeep, we request INZ to add some incentive, extra points for skilled employment outside of Auckland. I mean, we have been doing this few years back, and this was a very successful model. Looking at the the country, the demography, and allowing the migrants into the country in different professions, in different areas, to allow them to get into the job somewhere outside Auckland, and then get the residency.
You know, if I could go back in time, and if I was in government when, you know, instead of Labor, I probably wouldn't have got rid of the points system. If I'm honest with you, it was actually a good system.
Interesting.
I know what Labor wanted to do. They wanted to simplify it. I think they've gone too far. It means that we can't be as flexible now. We can't give points for age, or points for working outside of Auckland, or points for having a skilled partner. And I know it got quite complicated, but it was working quite well. And they kind of threw it out, and it was such a shame. I did ask my officials, can we just go back to the thing we had, because it was actually okay. And unfortunately, the whole thing had been dismantled, and they said, well, Minister, it will take us years to rebuild it. And I was like, well, that's not. So we're trying to work around, you know, I've got people, we need people to get their residence and have residence pathways like very soon. And so I don't have years to rebuild that system. So instead, what we're looking at doing is, as I said earlier, is creating that new pillar that will recognise skill. Will it be as, you know, it won't be as quite as flexible as what we had before. I can't build that into the system, and it's a real shame, because I totally agree with you. Having worked outside of Auckland and getting people to work in the regions where quite often they will stay and build their lives, and, you know, and there'll be sort of mini communities pop up everywhere. I mean, that would be great, but I can't go back to the point system at this point, unfortunately.
Wonderful. In the meantime, Rima Nakli actually watching this wonderful corridor as well. And to be very honest with you, my people want to listen to you within the next few weeks about announcing parents' visa policy, and also some more policies to clean the air, clean the mess. So we will welcome to you again. In the meantime, I'd love to say thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And I'll tell you what, maybe you could report live from our announcement. I'll let you know.
Wonderful. We'd love to do that. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for your wonderful time. And you have a good one for the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.